Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Really appreciate that. Anyone subscribed recently, thank you. But yeah, it really helps my channel. I've been noticing some subscribers recently. But anyway, please like, comment, please like, subscribe, and comment if you feel like I'm doing the 2005 song list. And while this was 160 songs, I mean, it's kind of, you have to pick and choose and make decisions and eliminate stuff in the process. I don't know. I have a hard time doing that. I'm doing 1993 right now, and there's not going to be nearly this many songs for 1993, but probably, I think as a standard, instead of being 50 songs a year, it'll probably be closer to 100, depending on the year. If you go back, I'm going to do some years from the 70s and even 60s, maybe even 80s, I'm not sure, but at least the 60s and 70s, it might not be, 100, but I think from 1993 it's going to be darn near, although I'm kind of reaching a little bit, pulling out songs I just know that aren't really, they're just more songs I knew at that time as opposed to favorites. But anyway, so picking up where we left off, I'm going to do the top 50 now. This is the top 50 songs of 2005. Through the Broken City, the title track from Ben Sinister's, quasi second album, but really debut album, first proper album. It's a great track. It kind of introduces their new sound, the new singer, or the vocals of Dan Moxon. Yeah, it's got that kind of Mars Volta-esque, it came out 2005, so they probably were listening to the first Mars Volta album at the time, if not the second one. But so yeah, it's a great track. It's busy, progressive, so number 49, the title track from another title track from Deadwing. Yeah, I like, there's some like whispering and stuff like that. I like the use of, I think, is it Mellotron or whatever Richard Barbieri uses on this song. There's a lot of tracks on Deadwing like that, but it's got great rhythm and energy to it. I think it's like 7 minutes, so it's a multi-part piece and everything like that. But one of the best tracks on Deadwing, for sure, the title track, the opening title track. Another song from number 48, Hell or Shelter from Ben Sinister. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the ones that has that, one of those little bits that I just loved. It's busy, it's fun, it's playful. That's the keyboard part I think that Dan plays. But there's also some those Omar Rodriguez guitar riffs that are so infectious. Anyway, it's kind of catchy, it's poppy and progressive, just like that whole record, really, Through the Broken City from Ben Sinister from 2005. Hell or Shelter. Okay, so Backwards Marathon from Between the Buried and Me from off of the Alaska record. This track this is one of my favorite Between the Buried and Me songs. It's really intense and riffy at the beginning, the first 2.5-3 minutes, but then you get into sort of the soothing, dreamy section with the synthesizers and Tommy's vocals, where he kind of eventually builds up, and they're all clean. He's talking about it's raining. It's like, it's raining, and then he kind of builds it up and gets more intense. It's raining, and it's the perfect blend of beauty and intensity and what's the word? harshness and beauty. I mean, this isn't death metal because it's not singing about real deep dark subjects like that. But you think of a backwards marathon, of course. I mean, you run a marathon, you could run a marathon backwards. But going from beginning to end to beginning or whatever. But it's one of the best tracks on Alaska, and it makes Alaska as great of a record as it is. Number 46, Sang Real from, I always pronounce it Sang Real, but it's Sang Real, I believe, from Dredg. This is the one that features that piano part that's with that groove. That reminds me a little bit of Halo of Porcupine Tree from Deadwing that same year. That Dino's playing, dun 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 dun. It's got that kind of haunting, brooding, slow chorus from the inside, But the bridge is where this song really shines the most for me. And then the bass line, and it's got that groove. It's hard to just not ignore. I know a lot of people cite this song as, if not their favorite song, the most distinctive song on Catch Without Arms. And I can totally see that. Anyway, number 45. Venona, which, it probably would include Epilogue with this, and actually some of the songs from Between the Heart and the Steps, like Rival Cycle or The Evidence, I might have put ahead of it, and playing, it's splitting hairs, of course, but this is the second to last track on the record, and it's pretty epic. It's got a lot of kind of storytelling, talking about the bloodhounds are gonna find me and all this stuff, and talking about the burial, like that my tombstone dedicated to me or whatever. I mean, I've never talked it thoroughly, and I should just give it a read through. All the lyrics on this album, it always reminded me of like the whole album, Between the Heart and the Synapse, like Twilight Zone, therapy, for a criminal being incarcerated, going through, trying to escape prison, Escape from Alcatraz, the movie. It was based on a true story, I guess, with Clint Eastwood and some other people. And then, I mean, it's sort of, the story is it's about someone who's trying to escape from prison, or a gang of inmates. They try to escape, they're planning their escape. Or is it all that therapy where they're actually trying to escape, but in truth is this is their penance. They're serving their time doing this sort of virtual process in their mind, like they did on the Twilight Zone or on the Outer Limits, or in the Deep Space Nine episode with O'Brien, where he's like in prison for like 20 years, and it really lasted all of about 3 hours or something like that, but. Anyway, it's fascinating, the story. I mean, even though the fan base never really agreed with this, like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But Venona, from Between Their Heart and the Synapse, number 45. Number 44, 10 Feet of God's Blood and Burial from Coheed and Cambria. Absolutely, another super catchy song. Yeah. I don't know the lyrics, but it's just, Claudio's vocal lines are just so infectious on it. And then, of course, he has some profanities in it, but it's got that. It's almost like The Police or The Car. Da 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 da. So good. Melatonin Scratch at 43 from Deadwing from Porcupine Tree, another song. I think I listened to this the other day, and I still really enjoy this song. I think what makes it is sort of the last couple of minutes, the dreamy part where they're talking. Is he literally talking about a mellotron? I know the whole Deadwing, the songs and the lyrics and the track names are based on a screenplay, so I know that sort of the plot involves a mellotron in the story. But I know that they released a short film a couple years ago during COVID that was supposed to basically be that translation or an adaptation of that screenplay. I never watched it, though I don't know if you had to pay for it. I can't remember if it was something that was done just like on Vimeo or something like that. Anyway, I should go ahead and try to find that. But yeah, the last couple of minutes, especially the dreamy part when Steven does like a falsetto, is just great. Makes the song really great. Music for a Nurse, one of probably the most dreamy song on Everyone in Position for Motion Size. It's kind of slow paced, but it kind of builds slowly with like the kind of slow, that picking, that like kind of post rock kind of vibrato, and it kind of, by the end of it, you're like, whoa, what is going on here? Yes, it's kind of a prayer song to a sense. I don't know if it's about someone who's praying or trying to write music for a nurse that helped them heal or something. I can't remember, but of course they have the EP Music for Nurses, which is a completely different thing. I don't know if there's a connection between the two. There probably is, but I've never read that. I'd like to find out more. I should ask Mike Finart that. If I ever see him in person again, I would try to remember to do that. But Why Are You Looking Grave, which features the services of the singer from Dinosaur Jr. from Mew and the Glass Canyon Heights. One of my favorites. Got that, like, I think it's the bass line, that little tapping, which a lot of Mew, especially the Kites record, has. But the combination of Jonas's higher pitched vocal style overlaid with the Dinosaur Jr. guy's sort of deeper really works from it. He's supposed to be like an old guy or something. Why Are You Looking Grave? But and it's also a contrast to She Came Home from Christmas, and the other track off of Frangers that features like that, whatever she was, like a 9-year-old girl or something like that, trying to get someone young and someone old. Anyway, yeah, it's a great track among that whole, especially that first side, or the first 6 or 7 tracks off of and the Glass Handed Kites, which is almost unmatched for any record of the 2000s, especially in their catalog. Of any like 6-track run or whatever, sweet. Imogen Heap's Headlock, the opening track off Speak for Yourself. It's one of the most catchy songs from that album and this whole year. It's just so catchy. I can't even sing along to it right now, but I mean it's The Way Back Down. I'm thinking of Clear the Area though. The Clear the Area and Headlock have a very similar rhythm to them. But Headlock is one of those songs where you get the hook in your head, in your brain, you can't get it out. It's got one of those earworms. It's great track. Paulson's a band. Well, I mean, they have this one record. I don't know if they put out a second record. I didn't actually hear it till 2007 because they re-released it, and I didn't even realize it was an old record. It was a re-release at the time. But this one track, I mean, the whole record is pretty good, very catchy. It has a pop-punk element, I'll admit, but the singer there's not a lot of screaming, really, and he's got a reasonable voice. He doesn't sound too young, unlike, like, say, Anthony Green or whatever, someone from Jimmy Eat World or something like that, or Blink-182. But the biggest thing about this is it's really repetitive, but in a good way. It's like... It's the emotion he expresses on his voice and the way it builds. I mean, not in the verses, but just in the chorus that kind of just carries on for like 2 to 3 minutes. It's just, I knew you when. It's very nostalgic. It's like talking about how I knew you when. Like, I knew you when you were different. I knew you when you were younger. Maybe kind of really longing for nostalgia. It's just... At one point, he just kind of soars his vocals and he goes, whoa... Whoa, the melody and the kind of the way it just goes with just the instrumentation is just great. It's a pop song. It's a simple song. It's a prog, not really, but the vocal performance and the composition just works. I don't know why. It's just, even though it's repetitive, it's one of those things where being repetitive really works. It's like it sounds so good to the ears and the brain that you want to hear it for as long as possible. I know many examples of that, where, like a guitar solo or something, I could have it go on for many, many more minutes than it does, or many more seconds. Lomo from Dopogera from Clip 1918. The second to last track, it just, the build up on that song, I would have days where I put on Dopogera, and this would be my favorite part. This and the track after it, Sleepwalk in Rome, where the energy is just off the charts, and it just would help me get more work done. And it's just, the emotion is all over it. The guitar, that post-rock picking, and the sort of U2 element totally works. The title track, not the title track, but the last song off, By Your Intention Would Buy a Unicorn, number 37 from Caddisfly. Yeah, this song builds, and it has this great kind of synthesizer part that gets layer after layer, and Chris Ruff's vocals, and the guitar riff just kind of gets bigger and bigger. It's like a 10-minute song, but it's sort of setting the stage what they would do on the next two records in a way. And there's like a line in it where they're talking about set sail on the prairie, but also this is not the end, it's only the beginning, or whatever. The concept of these 3 albums that Caddisfly made, the beginning of time or early time on planet Earth with life forms, then the present day and how things are kind of transitioning, and then the third album, of course, this Horses Galloping on Sailboats, the title of the third album. This is the song from the first record in that trilogy, sort of the end of the planet and whatever. But yeah, it's epic. It's kind of not post-apocalyptic, but it's dark in a way, but it's also great in a way. It's kind of setting the stage on a journey. Louisa from In the Glass Handed Kites, the final track on that album, which, at one point I kind of dismissed the second half of Kites. I would listen to it here and there, but this song I grew to be really appreciate, although I don't listen to it regularly individually, because it's a very melancholic song. I get really sad listening to it sometimes. For some reason I think of the time I met my wife when we were just meeting at the radio station for some reason. But he's talking about what a day I've had, and then someone who's like lost. They're trying to find their way back home, but he's talking about in a car. It's just really sad. It's so almost depressing. It's not even so much what he's singing; it's the way it sounds with the instrumentation. It's just it's beautiful but super sad. A little bit like the end of Ocean Size Frames. I mean, that album ends in a really super, like, majestic but sad way too. This is super sad. Probably Mew's saddest song, I'd say for sure. Not necessarily my favorite song from Mew, but I kind of, bow down to it because it's so sad and goosebump worthy. Old School Hollywood, number 35 off Mesmerize. My favorite track, probably my favorite System of a Down song. I mean, it's splitting hairs a little bit, but the Tony Danza cuts in line, and I listened to this recently, the first time in many years, and just the synthesizer part is just infectious. That's another earworm. They keep on repeating that phrase, old school Hollywood baseball, Jack Girardi, 10 feet tall, old school Hollywood, me and Frankie Avalon. It's just the energy is off the charts, and that Cook with the synthesizer just works. The guitar riff is good. I mean, it's heavy, but it's just more poppy heavy. And you don't really take it for the lyrics necessarily, a little bit, but more just it's a song that sounds catchy. And very left of center in some ways, like progressive pop in some ways, or progressive heavy pop. Anyways, pop rock. Number 34, All We Ever Wish from Time of Orchids. This is my favorite Time of Orchids song off my favorite album from them. It's epic. It's very progressive. It's very sad at the ending. The ending just kind of, the piano part and the little guitar, that refrain, that dun 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 dun. I mean, it's like 14 minutes, although I never felt like it lasted that long. It kind of builds slowly, All We Ever Wish. But I don't get bored with it, and it just works, and it just builds. The climax is great. So I don't think Time of Orchids really... I haven't revisited Namesake Caution in a long time, and I always liked that album, too. I have it on CD. I should go back to that. I don't think... One of those albums isn't on Spotify, but I'm thinking that's the one that's not Sarkis Wild. But anyway, number 33, Dredge's Bug Eye, or not Dredge's Bug, the B-side of the second track on Bug Eyes, which is also on Catch the Ode to the Sun. Kind of the opening in some ways the sort of trademark song. They would play this live so often, like first. It's a staple live song. The energy's great. Wasn't the first Dredge song I heard, but it sort of was the first one I think of because I was a fan that became a fan really when Catch Without Arms came out, a little bit before, but I was falling one over, and I was listening to the earlier stuff, and I just kind of got attached to Catch Without Arms at that point, the summer of 2005, and this is a song I always heard first. So, please accept this. The energy's great. If you need energy, this is maybe the most energetic song on Dredge's album Cut Without Arms, and maybe their most energetic song actually on their whole catalog. So anyway, Ode to the Sun. It's a B-side on the Bug Eyes single. Started Something Beautiful from Deadwing, from Porcupine Tree. I love the outro on this. A little bit like Melloton Scratch, but it's a song that grew on me over time, but it's gorgeous, the ending, kind of the way he repeats that vocal phrase and then the guitar lead, and the segue's great on this. It's Porcupine Tree writes a lot of songs where they end great. They don't necessarily begin great, but they end great. Not all of them, but a lot of them. This is not an exception, and it's one of my favorite songs on that. We got a couple more songs I believe off Deadwing to show up still, but it's part of what makes Deadwing such a great record. Okay, so uplifting news from Dredge, which wasn't officially on the standard version, and I hadn't heard for many months after hearing Catch Without Arms, but it was a B-side on like iTunes or something, and then they at some point did play it live at points, but and it's interesting. I love a lot of parts of this song, that little riff in the bridge, but Mike Portnoy talked about Catch Without Arms in 2005, and he mentioned Rush. And I kind of understood the comparison to a point where they're melodic, progressive, but also writing songs, just like melodic, but also, very well produced, very clean sounding. But there's a song. The song I was thinking, it just hit me the other day. It came to me that there's part of this song, Uplifting News, that sounds an awful lot like Rush's Analog Kid. It's weird. That part that goes. I think it's the part that goes do that riff. Save your. But the chorus is great. Save your stories because they're all the same. Man. I think it's that part. I don't know. I was listening to Uplifting News and I heard it in my head and I was like, God, that sounds like a song I know. I think I'm thinking of Analog Kid from Rush. I need to do like a side-by-side comparison, and they're very similar. Anyway, and I know later I remember seeing Gavin Hayes and some of the Dredge guys talking about Rush. I don't know the biggest Rush fans. They're more influenced by the Police, U2, and of course Pink Floyd and Tool, but a lot of other bands, Zeppelin, but Rush is in there. Anyway, because they talked about them later. I remember in a couple of interviews Gavin talked about Rush. Through the Broken Cities, Truth or Truth. I think this is the top track I have from that album that has so many good songs from Ben Sinister. It starts out slow, but the crescendo and the build is just amazing. Energetic, again, the kind of guitar parts and the keyboards. The guitar parts very similar, but channeling some of what Omar Rodriguez Lopez, that riff, that kind of bluesy, almost Latin style riffing. Anyway. Da, 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 da. She gets her. See, that song and Hell or Shelter, I sometimes get mixed up, but they're both great songs. I kind of split hairs between the two of them. Jamai Vu from Catch Without Arms is next, and I've got a ton of Catch Without Arms and Deadwing songs on here. This was the first song that kind of won me over overall. I remember when I saw them live, I'm like, I don't know if I like everything on by this band, but that song was really good. It has very much of a Pink Floyd element. The guitar solo is just very kind of not trippy, but warm and big. It's a super big kind of, I can't think of the right word. Mesmerizing is the easiest descriptive word I can use, but not inside you. I believe that's the song that talks about my own college, which I can relate to that because I never did finish college, and I kind of felt like I have my own college in the universe city, where it sounds like he's saying universe and city as two words, even though it could be university. But yeah, Jamai Vu is great. I mean, it's not my favorite song on Catch Without Arms, but I have a hard time. I have a specific sentimentality toward it because it really was the one that kind of got Dredge over the top for me. It's like, all right, this band can be pretty damn good sometimes. And then I kind of got won over by the rest of the record and, of course, all the rest of their music. Self's Summer Sound from Porno Mint and Crime. So this is the top Self song. I mean, in fairness, like that record has like 21 tracks, and I'm not as versed as I would like to be, but this is super catchy, super poppy, super sort of Beach Boys-ish, Jellyfish-ish, for that's a better way to put it. Yes, it's when Self writes a really well-crafted pop song. This is one of the many songs I would put on that list, and why it gets it's my favorite track from that record, but I mean, that could change if I can. I need to spend more time with it. There's just so many Self records, and some of these, like this one, I have it on vinyl even, because they reissued it, that and, of course, Ornament and Crime a few years back. But Summer Sound from Self, number 28. Number 27, the top track from Doppelganger from Clip 1918, They Were Wed by the Sea. For whatever reason, people that do like Clip 1918 and Doppelganger specifically rarely talk about this being a favorite. They think it's okay. To me, this was clearly my favorite song. I think it pretty much still is my favorite song of theirs. And that it's just so uplifting. It's very catchy. It sounds like U2. It sounds a lot like U2 in such a good way. And I have this strong association after seeing, Shane's list at the end of 2005, going to their MySpace page and playing that over and over again. It's like, who is this band? I want to hear more if they have any songs like this. And it's romantic. They're Wed by the Sea. It's very. It opens like the second track on the album, and it's very punchy, very riffy, very energetic, and very catchy. Great track by Clint 1918. One of the best songs of the decade, actually, I would say. One of the catchiest songs. Number 26, Lazarus from Porcupine Tree. Maybe Steven Wilson's poppiest song he's ever written in a good way. It's a ballad. It's so hypnotic in a way. Anyone could like it. My friend John described it similar to like Coldplay. Yes. Follow me down to the valley below. Dun, dun, dun. The piano part on that. Dun, 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 dun. And it's Lazarus. It's like someone going to die or someone's going to heaven. But it was all over the place in 2005. Not my top track on this record, but it's hard to argue it's not the best song on the record. Anyway, Heaven Alive from Ocean Size off of Everyone's Position, the second track. Great build on that song. It's a little lighter than the opening track, but it's great. The layers, they're masters at doing that, one riff after another riff, adding the vocals, adding kind of multiple vocal tracks. Heaven Alive is no exception. Of course, they released it as a single because it's a little catchier than some of the other songs on Everyone's Position. But yes, number 25. Number 24, Welcome Home. Coheed and Cambria's most well-known song. Used in soundtracks. It's a terrific track. There's people that don't like Coheed and Cambria at all, but actually do like this song. It's a massive riff. It is. I mean, I don't really consider Coheed and Cambria metal, prog metal, but I guess you could say it's hard to argue that this isn't prog metal. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Of course, I always think of that line. Just the guitar riff and Claudio's vocal performance. And then the little chanting at the end. Whoa, whoa, it's just it's a little bit like Pain of Salvation's the last track, but Beyond the Pale, that but anyway, number 24, Welcome Home. Number 23, Themata from Carnival. Fantastic song from the record I like the most from them. Great layers. It gets heavy. It's epic. Just kind of builds. It gets one level gets heavier, and the next level gets heavier. And just like Ian, whatever his name is, the vocal performance is great. And this is most people didn't hear. I didn't hear Carnival until around 2007, maybe. That's when the U.S. got distribution for. I think his name is Ian. Is his name Ian? Ian Kenny. I mean, to this day, those first two tracks especially, this song is, I've always been my go-to, what won me over. And this is the guitar riffs. I think this is the one that also has that great, like, symphonic string section, or at least a synthesized string section. It's awesome, Carnival. That's why it's higher than some of these other songs that I love. Themata, number 23. Number 22, Bug Eyes. Okay, so Dredge's most well-known song. It was the single that was at Best Buy. Yes, and it's lyrically it's great, musically it's great. It's what I've never gotten sick of it. 10 years have gone. It's much too long. I'm trying to do something good for myself. Trying to do something good for whatever. I wasted all this time, And the guitar riff is big. It's like it's a guitar. It's like a slide guitar. I believe that Gavin plays a lot of that. Do 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 do. Because he's a guitarist. He played guitar and he originally started as a guitarist. So they had him and Mark Engels as guitarists. But yeah, in the book. I need to read that book, of course, but I need to finish these other books first. But yes, Bug Eyes is their trademark track at this point. I don't know if they'll ever have a song that's more well known, even though they're not that well known. It's the most sort of like great introductory track, and it's great. Not my favorite song on Catch with Their Arms, but it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue it's not the best song. Like I'd say with Lazarus off of Deadwing. So La Via La Vasquez from the Mars Volta. I believe this is the first Mars Volta. Yeah. And this is a multi-part track. It's like 12 minutes. Of course, it has the Santana riff that's, it's not identical, but it's very influenced by Santana. That don't. It's just the groove on that is great. Latin, jazzy, that's energy off the charts. Cedric's performance is great. At one point, he does that, and toward the end, where he's singing a little higher, a little more energetic. Won't you be afraid? I don't know all the lyrics, but that's some of my favorite parts on the Francis the Mute record. So, I mean, for a 12-minute song, it's like you can introduce someone to the Mars Volta. It's a little hard. Of course, this is the single I have, the Bible and the Breathalyzer, but I'm talking about La Via Quez. But anyway, yes, I mean, it's more than just that riff, but that riff stands out the most. But that part where Cedric is, the second half of it is great. Except at the end, of course, the last 3 minutes they're doing the little vocal work and slowing down, the vocal slower. And everybody know I won't forget what I'm looking for. I can tolerate it. It works on the record more than an individual song, I guess, in some ways. So Hungover on Tuesday, the top track I have from Dredge's Catch Without Arms. So long to the earth and stormy weather. I think to me the segue in that little like the guitar riff, the segue toward the end that builds is what makes the song what I enjoy the most about this song. Although it's splitting hairs with so many songs on Catch Without Arms, but I've always kind of overall, I concluded at one point that this was my favorite track if I had to pick one. But again, because I don't know if it's the most progressive. Bleeding on yourself. Gavin's performance, he kind of builds up he parallels what Mark Engels is doing, and he talks about the fire. It kind of then comes down to earth, and it segues really nice into the ornament at the end of the record. But anyway, number 19, Six Strings to Cover Fear from Subterranean Masquerade. I'm wearing their shirt today. This is just the terrific. It's not the last track on Suspended Animation Dream, but the peak of it, where you get the string work with the buildup of sort of death rock, progressive death rock with Paul Coors both clean and then his growling vocals. The growling vocals work so well. They're subtle. They're not over the top. I wish every singer that growled sounded like Paul Coors sometimes. But yes, the string section is just sublime. It's so tasteful, and it works so well with. This is progressive death metal with strings done really well. Even though it's not overdone, it's just the right amount of string sections sort of harmonizing with the guitars and with the vocal style. The Intention Craft, number 18 from Pure Reason Evolution. Oh, just an unbelievably good song that was part of the Cautionary Tales from the Brave mini album, and then ended up on the later, I think the American version of the Dark Third, in July or August. Wasn't on the British version that came out initially in April or whatever. But the riff is great. It's poppy. It's very bouncy. And then the vocal. It's just so trademark of that sound. It's one of my favorite songs they wrote, even though it wasn't on that original Dark Third version. Being on Cautionary Tales from the Brave, it just was a standout track on there. It's I really love this band. I want to hear as much from this band right now. Anyway, I didn't even include In Aurelia, which is another song. That was a song that I heard the most initially off of their MySpace. But anyway, The Intention Craft from Pure Reason Revolution, number 18. In fact, it starts off with Arrival too, I believe, but which is kind of a dreamy opening. So Coat from Themata, just the opening track from Themata, the first song that Carnival released on an album. They had an EP before that. Great riffs, big guitar riffs, great vocal arrangements on that song. It's just Ian Kenny, just from the gate, just kind of introduces himself as this great falsetto singer. I can't say much more about it. I don't know what he's saying. It sounds like he's saying Cote, or what COTE stands for specifically. Maybe I'll look that up. Maybe I'll do a video on Carnival. If we ever get a new album, especially from them, I would want to talk about their history and talk about that specific song, But anyway, yeah, that's my top track. Although I could that and the title track from Themata, I kind of go back and forth. It has other good songs on Themata, but those two have always been my favorite two. Favorite two from the band, pretty much. There's a few songs on the records that came after I like a lot too, but I could do a top 10 maybe from them at some point. The Grand Conjuration from Opeth, my favorite Opeth song. The Deep Purple element is great. It's very gothic isn't the right word, but kind of classic rockish, but using death metal with it, progressive. It's very progressive. The organ use, the Hammond B3 organ, is what makes this so good. It's a haunting energy, and Michael Ackerfeld's vocal performance, mixing the cleans and the growls, is the right blend on this song. And I thought they got the blend, the mix of all their elements and all their influences so well. And Ghost Reverie is in this specific track, where it's dreamy and haunting, epic, progressive, dark, but folky at the same time. This is like a microcosm of Opeth. This is where they kind of hit on all cylinders for me on the Grand Conjuration. I know some people absolutely don't like this song at all. Think it's an absolute bore fest and a waste of time. They think songs on this album are much better, and that it ruins the album. I don't understand that, but this is, to me, Opeth being the progressive band that they should be, still doing death metal. Anyway, number 16. Number 15, Apocalypso. Yeah, this is one of my favorite tracks off the Glass and Kites. It's probably the heaviest in some ways. It's got that riff. It's got like a danceable kind of thing, and that bass riff. It's haunting. I always think about going into the city. and it's just it builds the build and the energy. It's just fantastic. The drum work, the bass lines, and Jonas's vocal lines. I think Mew, that whole suite of songs on the first half of Kites, but this has always been like sort of the song I almost look forward to the most because it had that punch. It's like, this is Mew. Mew is not a soft band. This is when Mew gets heavy and they really bring it with you. They're hitting you with all cylinders on Apocalypso. What it means, isn't about the apocalypse. It's kind of a dark song, I suppose it is. A lot of Mew's lyrics are dark, actually, oddly, even though the music doesn't sound always dark. Number 14, Selkie's The Endless Obsession, a fan favorite between Bury Me, the song off Alaska, the top song for me off Alaska. The King Crimson, Three of a Perfect Pair, Interval Pattern, yes. It's just fantastic, the riffage on this song and the way they use synthesizers, and it builds and it kind of the time changes. It lives up and almost exceeds its expectations. I go back and forth between my favorite between the Buried in Me song is, if I was rating. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's like, White Walls from Colors, but I think they might have topped it a little bit like Learning to Live and Scarred. It's like they topped this song with White Walls in some ways, but it's hard to not acknowledge how fantastic and amazing this song is. Selkie's The Endless Obsession from Between the Buried from Alaska. Number 13, the opening track off Everyone in Position from Oceanside, The Charm Offensive. The build on this is unbelievable, and Mike Frenart sounds totally pissed off by the end of it. He's like yelling, it's like, listen to me, I am. And then the guitar riff is just massive. Don't, no. That's part, it's like a 10-minute track, but it totally wins me over. And even though when I first heard this album, I was on the fence. I wasn't sure if I liked them. I thought they were a little too heavy. I didn't like the fact he screamed. There's some little punk elements, a little Radiohead element. I after listening and getting won over by them a little bit more, before Frames even came out, this was my go-to at one point. It's like, all right, now I can understand why this is almost like progressive metal in some ways, in a different way. The Grace from Never Ending White Lights, the single they released 2015, but the song that they got most well known for got some radio play. It's terrific, especially Dallas Green's vocal performance is dreamy as hell. And the guitar part, I don't know if it's Daniel Victor playing that or someone else. It's so dreamy. And it's just a terrific pop ballad. Maybe the best pop ballad of the 2000s, actually. It's so good. And that's why they released it as a single EP on vinyl back in 2015 as an anniversary. Anyway, number 11, This Armistice from The Receiving End of Sirens. My top track from Between the Heart and the Synapse. The vocal harmonies are off the charts. It's like 3-part harmonies. You got 3 singers, Casey Crescenzo, Brendan Brown, and Alex Bars. And it's a force of nature. It's like Queen and Sabotage, and I don't know who else to compare it to. It's just huge vocal work. The guitar riffs, Between the Heart and the Synapse. In the light of misleading, I can't even capture this finesse between the heart. I can't even remember the lyrics off the top of my head, but how I've been teething in light of your misleading, which of course Casey wrote for the Deer Hunter, the misleading subject. I wonder if, when he was writing the misleading stuff for Act 2 and the misleading demos, if that kind of found its way into the lyrics on This Armistice. In light of your misleading, it causes collapse between the heart and the synapse. We're all puppets, we're all marionettes, we're all puppets, we're all marionettes. It's an unbelievably well-crafted song. It's progressive in a lot of ways, and the vocals, among other things, stand out a ton. Now we're to the top 10. All right, so Octavarium, the big, massive, epic track from Dream Theater. I always think of White Portnoy's sister when she heard this. She couldn't stop talking, was raving about it. She hadn't heard it. The rest of the fans hadn't heard it. Only band members and certain family members got to hear it. But it's a great track. I mean, it's a multi-part epic, prog epic. It's not my favorite Dream Theater epic, but I mean, it has some really good moments. My favorite moment probably is the little continuum solo that's really playful that Jordan has. But it's got all the different parts, the Medicate Me, and some of the lyrics referencing Pink Floyd to Genesis to Queen, to the references to Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, and it's a fun, nugget filled track that in the very end of it's a little trapped inside this octavarium. I'm not as crazy about the end of it as the rest of the song, but it's still really well written, and still the best piece on Octavarium, of course. Kind of makes Octavarium that much better of a record. So anyway, yes, Octavarium number 10. Number 9, our final hymn from Neverending Lights, which features Jimmy and Echo, mostly because this is a super dreamy, almost sort of out-of-body experience type track. It's about like we're going to die kind of thing. It's not a song I would listen to regularly, but it's sort of in awe of it. And it's Jimmy Necco, one of Jimmy Necco's best vocal performances. So it's the last track on this sort of mesmerizing, melancholy record from Neverending Lights, the debut album. Number 8. The top track on Imogen Heap, Speak for Yourself, the moment I said it, the piano part, and it's dun dun dun, it's haunting, dun 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 dun. Sounds like something that Chroma Key would have written, that Kevin Moore might have written. It just builds up. It's about, I don't know, the story of like a conflict of like between two people or something happened to Imogen Heap, and the moment you said something, it just completely ruined the mood and had to go, it's not even light, something late at night, so not even light out, or like late at night, almost getting into morning, like 4 a.m. in the morning. It's my favorite track on the record, and it's always been sort of, the song that probably won me over the most from her when I listened to her. I'd heard Hide and Seek and one or two, like Headlock. But yeah, I was like, wow, this is pretty breathtaking, and she's pretty much a goddess. She's kind of pouring out all her emotions and soul on the song into the piano and her vocal performance. It's breathtaking. It's a fantastic song. The last song, I believe, on Speak for Yourself. Number 7, Floydian Memories, which is not an original piece, but it is an original piece in a way. This is the greatest medley of tribute of any band songs ever done to me. It's fantastic. There's like 30 songs that are referenced and segued and transitioned, interlaced, sometimes 2 or 3 different songs over, tracked together, mixed together. From Cymbeline to Julia Dream to Fletcher Memorial Home to stuff of Dark Side to Bike. It's like, if you're a Pink Floyd fan or you want to learn about Pink Floyd, listen to this stupid thing, even though it's not even Pink Floyd themselves. I think it's some of Mike Baker's best vocal lines, even though he's just doing a tribute. And they were a huge Pink Floyd fan, Shadow Gallery, including Mike Baker. And it also has Mark Zonder from Fates Warning, I believe, on it, parts of it, and it did some of the arrangements maybe. And also it has, I believe, Arjun Lucasen. Yeah, Floating Memories, I've never gotten sick of it, even though it's a tribute. It's 25 minutes, and it's just a masterwork. Some of it is just kind of jammy, synth, trippy stuff that Pink Floyd would do live, like on Careful with That Axe Eugene, or some of the, the live at Pompeii. So, anyways. Number 6, Francis the Mute, Cygnus Vismund Cygnus from the Mars Volta, the opening track. The riff is just fantastic, the energy. It starts out slow, but I'm actually thinking of La Viva Vasquez, but I'm thinking the first track off, this is like a 13-minute epic. It's the Mars Volta were hitting all strides on this record when they were writing the sort of build, the interval patterns, and this is among the best moments, but it has many moments included. Also moving on, Ornament, Last Rungs from Ocean Size, number 5. This to me always sounded like a 70s prog tune, or like classic rock tune in some ways. The way it builds the vocal, like really almost like choral vocals, but it's just perfect. It's not really that heavy, although it kind of gets to be a little heavy at the end, but it's just dreamy as hell, and I've kind of always felt like it ended the album perfectly, and it always was it became my favorite track. I mean, there's a lot of tracks I love and included on this list from 2005 from Everyone's Position, but it comes down to it, this is my favorite piece, It's just the right blend of psychedelia and vocal harmonies and guitar riffs kind of building to a great climax. Anyway, they always end their albums so well. So Cassandra, Gemini, Francis the Mute's, the closing epic, which is like 5 or 6 parts. I love the trumpet work. I love the sort of the interval patterns. Dun 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 dun. I know it kind of goes on. There's some psych noodling in it. to me, I've always kind of looked past that, and I think it's worth getting to the big moments, the climaxes, and that's why this piece really works so well. And it's the Mars Volta's greatest achievement to me, to be honest with you. The whole record, in a way, so, Sigma's Visman Sigma's is a close second. It's a little bit like Transatlantic's, Stranger in Your Soul and Duel with the Devil. Well, Duel with the Devil is amazing, but I still kind of lean towards Stranger in Your Soul, because Stranger in Your Soul almost one-upped it. Those two epics are just so good, but Cassandra just wins by a little bit. That's why it's a little bit higher. Not much. The Zookeeper's Boy, I love the whole suite. So many songs on that opening side of the Kites record, including Apocalypso. But when it comes down to it, this is the song that kind of won me over eventually. After not liking it, I thought they sounded like Enya. It was like very high-pitched, helium-filled vocals. I couldn't handle the vocal style. But I got into Sigur Rós a little later, and I got more used to that kind of high-pitched singing that didn't sound super young, though. And Zookeeper's Boy is very progressive. Like a giraffe, you have to climb to find it. There's a grip. You're an ostrich. You put your head in the sand. I mean, the lyrics kind of are trippy, and they're not. I don't know if they really mean really from a literal sense. It's more of how they sound. It's a little bit like Yes, like a Yes influence in that sense. But also, I always think of this song about going to the movie Science Asleep in 2006. Going into the city. I always get this dreamy element. We're talking about the beginning. I'll get lost in the city. And I find it funny, a lot of the Mew fans on the podcast are fans of Science Asleep, so it's interesting. Even though this came out before, that was written long before that movie came out. But anyway. Number 2, Arriving Somewhere But Not Here. The epic, and probably my favorite song that Steven Wilson's ever done, actually. It has the guitar solo from Michael Ackerfeld, of course, which is great. It's very riffy. But that rhythm is just infectious throughout every verse on this song. It doesn't seem 11 minutes long. I could hear it forever. I mean, this song could be 25 minutes and I wouldn't hate it. So it's fantastic. The peak, or the greatest part of Deadwing, which is a fantastic album. Some people take their favorite record from Porcupine Tree. I split hairs, but it's hard to argue. And number 1, I go with the Willing Well Suite from Good Apollo, from Coheed and Cambria, Good Apollo 1. It's interesting. I listened to this the other day for the first time in a while, and I've always loved it. I love the energy. The energy's off the charts. It's super catchy. It's sort of a microcosm of the whole record, but it flows super well, and the emotion out of Claudia's vocals works so well. Great from a standpoint of trying to work. You could work out to it. However, it's interesting how the lyrics are super brooding and dark and just cruel in some ways. Now, I know it's the story of like a writer and his relationships, a guy named Jesse. There's a lot of profanities, although they're not, right now, it's not like overtly like gangster rap profanities, but it just gets, if you think about it from a story standpoint, it's kind of cruel. So it's a little potty mouth. It's kind of dark lyrically. I guess I always have been able to, not always, but most cases, be able to look past sometimes lyrics that are super dark. The music is just so damn good, which happens. Like Hungry Like the Wolf from Duran Duran. That's a creepy song. Or Every Breath You Take from The Police. Another creepy lyrical song. But it's a little bit like that. So it's a great tune. This is a fantastically composed suite of 20 some odd minutes. And it works. It's the the peak and the end of this just perfect record for me. So that's why it kind of wins. I mean, again, this whole thing is splitting hairs, but that's the top 50 and the top 160 songs. I mean, 2005 was, as I've said many times now, was a fantastic year for music. It had many of these albums for progressive art rock. You had all these big concept albums. These bands, some of them were sort of peaking or coming into their own. In the case of like Dredg, they put maybe the most accessible record, but it became highly addictive. Some of these albums were just super addictive. Maybe not in 2005, some in 2005, but some of them were just unbelievably mood records. And so there are other years I'm going to try doing all the years. I don't know how long it'll take me, a couple of years maybe, to finish this whole thing, but 2005 has always stood out as one of my favorite years. I'll say the same thing about 2008. I anticipate when I do 2008, it could make this year seem like absolute, like a Cliff Notes version or something, like an abridged version of a year. Because 2008 is one of my all-time favorite years. Also, Well, it's a year I absolutely adore, and it's super deep in terms of records I love. A lot of the years from the 2000s. So the next year, like I mentioned, 1993, isn't going to be probably nearly this long. It might be close to 100 songs. It might be 100. I don't know. Anyway, but thank you for watching. Again, please like and subscribe and post in the comments what your favorite 10 or 20 or 30 songs, or how many you want to go for 2005. I'd love to hear about it, and we'll see you next time.